The Chair now recognizes himself for 5 minutes. The Fair Credit Reporting Act requires consumer reporting agencies to provide credit reports to child support agencies to ascertain the ability of father or mother's ability to pay child support. And it's required to give 10 days notice to that mother or father before the credit report is pulled. Mr. Stewart, Mr. Pratt, do you believe that there's any issues with that 10-day notice requirement?
Yeah, so I don't know that, probably a better question on the side of the child support enforcement agencies themselves. My understanding is some of them have concerns with that 10-day period because it might be the heads up that some non-custodial parent needs to push and move some assets around to make sure that those don't show up and they either pay less or they don't pay child support that they might otherwise owe. I think that's the concern. That was a set of language that was pushed into the FCRA 2003. Maybe.
And I'm all about notice and making sure people understand when their credit is being pulled. But listen, I want to look out for kids and make sure that children are being treated fairly. And if someone has 10-day notice, they can liquidate assets. Is that fair to say, or max out credit cards that could have an impact on their credit score?
Well, clearly that's going to have an impact on the financial profile of the consumer who's then being evaluated in terms of the ability to then make child support payments.
And I believe in California there was a case that found that the child support enforcement process was considered debt settlement and that 10-day notice wasn't required, but that's only for California. Do you think that the CFPB could or should give new guidance and extend it not just to California but around the rest of the country?
So I guess first I have to go look at the California law to see what that looks like. I think some dialogue post-hearing to figure this out, to make sure we understand in detail what it is that you think ought to be done and what it is that we think current law permits us to do would be a good dialogue to have. And
I'd ask for unanimous consent to insert a letter into the record from one of the consumer reporting agencies asking that the CFPB actually back this guidance change without objection so admitted. And I guess maybe I'd ask the panel, what steps are taken to protect the millions of bits of information that are collected in regard to people's credit history and personal information?
So I probably should start since we're the industry. CDIA's members, even before the enactment of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, understood their obligation to secure the information and make sure that it was protected. Our members have the same risks posed for them that you would see with any U.S. business that has a valuable data set. We employ entire data security teams and audit processes. I can tell you that the audit processes and the oversight includes on-site inspections of downstream users and on-site inspections of resellers in the process. I've had resellers sometimes complain about how robust those on-site inspections can be. We have IP address monitoring systems to make sure we understand when a company is in the normal cycle. So, for example, if we have a bank in Colorado that normally orders credit reports during its normal business day, but that bank code seems to now be tied to orders that are showing up at 3 a.m. and, oh, by the way, it's a Russian IP address and it's not one that's U.S.-based. Those are the kinds of red flags that we're going to use to shut down that access, go back to that bank, talk about it, and find out what's going on. I can tell you that we've gone to some very small users. One small financial institution had the codes for accessing the credit bureau systems on a bulletin board. We suggested that wasn't a great idea. That's the kind of outreach we have on a regular basis. And we have remote learning information security training that we make available to customers as well as our members.
Great. In regard to the information that you collect, do you collect information on, just to get a good read on someone's credit history, do you collect information on their religion?
No.
How about the number of children that they have?
No.
How about the ages of their children?
No.
How about the GPS coordinates of their home?
No.
Okay. Ms. Wu, just checking to make sure. Ms. Wu, listen, I share a concern about what happens with reporting of medical debt. But one concern that I have is if it isn't reported and maybe even weighted properly, do you have a concern that individuals may put that at the bottom of their payment list? There may be more delinquencies in regard to, or less incentive to pay off medical debt which raises costs for hospitals, clinics, and in turn creates higher healthcare costs for the rest of us at a time when we're trying to reduce healthcare costs?
Well, one thing important to note about medical debts on credit reports is their vast majority are for small amounts. 2003 Federal Reserve study found something like over 80% of medical debt collection items for under $500 or $644 in today's dollars. So these are usually things like co-pays, the ambulance bill that, you know.
And I'm sorry for asking you a question when my time had expired. My time has expired. And with that, I would now recognize Ms. McCarthy for 5 minutes.